And it's a warm welcome to my first guest today, award-winning investigative journalist and veteran lobby correspondent, and our honorary guest on the show, David Hencke.
David, really good to see you again, and thank you for joining us today on our 50s Women Special, our CEDAWinLAW special. Our listeners would love to hear about your fantastic news regarding Stationers Livery Company. Would you like to tell us a bit more?
Well, this was rather extraordinary. I got approached by someone who said, "Have you ever thought of joining the stationers?" And I actually said, "Well, no, I hadn't actually." And then I got invited to a meeting that they had. It was quite a good meeting. It was about a new book which looks at all the treasures of the livery companies, all 200 of them in London. And I found it a really friendly occasion, actually. And I got both someone approving me, recommending me, and seconding me. And then I had a chat with the clerk and the sort of warden who was setting up the new members. And basically, they said to me, "We would like you very much to join." And it appears because of all the stories I've done both in the past on The Guardian, where, exposing dodgy MPs and people like this, down to more recent stuff, which of course includes my campaigning for the 50s women, the cases I've taken up of surgeons who've been, in my view, unfairly dismissed for exposing patient safety issues in hospitals. And they were very, very keen. It also seemed to add the fact that I lived in a historic house, a former coaching inn and pub, appealed to them because they're also an historic building dating from just after the Great Fire of London, where the original one burnt down. And they basically, it's a very good organisation to belong to because it's historic. It's both historic. It goes back to 1403 and actually had amazing powers in the 16th century after the invention of printing, where it had the right of copyright of any book that was produced. And if they didn't go to the Stationers' Hall, they could seize the book and stop it being published. They can't do that now for obvious reasons. But it has a great history. It represents not only journalists, but the newspaper management industry, the publishers, the bookbinders, the librarians, really a wide range of people. And what's fascinating, I mean, it has got quite a historic. Well, you don't quite sign a pledge, but you have to repeat your loyalty to King Charles III, plus to the wardens and the people who run it. And that side is sort of historic, actually, because it's a city livery company. But it's also very modern. I mean, I was amazed to find that 40% of the members are women. And I was actually the oldest one of the new ones. I mean, three of them were women in their 20s, and they also are increasingly representing people from ethnic minorities. There was a guy who had won a bursary for physics, and he was one of the new ones. So it's both a historic and going back, right back centuries, but also a modern membership that actually takes in a lot of young people. As actually the warden, when he addressed them all, said actually the membership includes 40% women, it includes Jewish people, Muslim people, gay people, every branch of modern British life is represented there. So I was extremely proud. And I thought it was a great accolade. And I was able to bring my daughter and my 16-year-old grandson to the opening ceremony. And it was then a very informal occasion. So in a way, it's really been sort of part of the apex, I suppose, of my career to actually become a member of this. And it could go further because they've asked me to apply as well as being a freeman of the body, to apply to the freeman of the City of London, which basically gives me the right to drive sheep through London if I want. Provided I join or go with the woolen livery company, which is another ancient one. And they're very keen to actually promote me to, take up issues, because they're aware that I'm very keen on mentoring young people to get into journalism and also take up issues there. So it was a terrific honour, and it made me very proud because it came out of the blue, to be honest.
Wonderful. You obviously had all the right accreditations there, including a house that had been a pub as well, David. So that's absolutely marvellous. So, and good to hear that they are very inclusive as well, because that's what we like, isn't it?
That's what
Inclusive.
I like.
Yeah. So, David, you recently posted on social media about a health concern. On an update, you shared that your recovery was going well in the right direction. So, how are you at the moment, David?
Yeah, but
You want
my
to talk?
health is now improving. I mean, but it was a shock at the time. I mean, as I said, I had a melanoma on my back. It cleared up, looked as though I was cancer free, and then I discovered that it had moved into my liver at an early stage. And they gave me some treatment, which frankly didn't 100% work. And they've changed the treatment, and it's now working really well. It has both restored my bloods affecting my liver to normal when they were abnormal, and within a fortnight it has started to reduce the amount of cancer in my liver, and I'm hoping within a month's time it will be further reduced. So my health is improving. I've had a big battle with it, but I'm coming out on the right side.
That's good, David, and many blessings to you from us all for to continue your recovery.
Mm.
WASPI Limited withdrew a judicial review in December 25 and accepted a £180,000 sum in doing so. What impact, if any, would this have on WASPI Limited's capacity to mount a legal challenge?
In my view, a huge impact. I mean, at the time, they officially said, oh, well, if the government, don't agree to find some compensation for the women, we can go back to court. I actually read the judgment of the 180,000, and it said it was in full and final settlement, which means there is no opportunity, as far as I can see, for them to go to court and reopen it, particularly because they accepted 180,000, which was double the money they'd set aside to fight the judicial review from the government. And of course, after a short period, the government suddenly announced they weren't going to give them anything anyway.
Yeah.
And frankly, they were in a very bad situation. And in my view, because they wouldn't cooperate with other organisations, whether it was CEDAWinLAW or the Women in Wales or other groups actually that wanted mediation rather than trying to follow the ombudsman report, which only gave them limited compensation. They basically seem to have shot themselves in the foot, because I can't see, sadly, and I think it's a real sad day, the women getting anything actually now. And then they might create a big stir in Parliament and possibly get a vote. But I would be amazed with the large Labour majority, and probably some of the Tories not being that sympathetic, because they weren't when they were in government, in compensating them, getting this past Parliament. So, in a way, I think WASPI have basically let down all the women concerned in this case, to be honest, and that's a very bad thing. And I think the impact on it has actually been, well, frankly, it could be terminal for them to get any money now. I mean, the problem is CEDAWinLAW would need a load of money to create a new case seeking mediation, which frankly I always thought judges are always in favour of people settling outside courts and having mediation, and I thought it stood a good chance. But WASPI just set their mind and their lawyers behind Muttons as well, completely against doing anything. So in this direction, which I thought was another fatal mistake. So it's two fatal mistakes: one, withdrawing from the court and accepting the money, and leaving the government free to do what they've just done, which is to not compensate them at all, and basically failing to safeguard themselves. I mean, they're going to create a row about it, but I think it was going to end up as a load of hot air, to be frank.
Thank you, David. Should a parliamentary vote emerge and it excludes at least CEDAWinLAW's lawful representations, what parliamentary recourse might those discriminated against have in such circumstances?
Oh, it's very difficult to see this, because if it's not put into the motion, about covering the CEDAWinLAW case. And frankly, what I've found is that there seems to be a massive lack of interest in following up the CEDAWinLAW issue on discrimination and needing the mediation to sort this out. So I think they will have a difficult recourse in law unless they had loads of money to go to the courts, and they haven't. So it seems, would almost say it seems to go nowhere, actually, if a vote doesn't actually extend it, unless they can get MPs to amend the motion to encourage mediation. And there are some MPs who are in favour of it, but I don't know whether enough to carry the day in the House of Commons in a vote of all MPs. So it's rather sad, actually.
It is, isn't it? Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, David, there. Where WASPI Limited, along with other groups who accept CEDAWinLAW's invitation to join mediation with Department of Work and Pensions representatives out of the top 500 ranked team on standby to be considered for the neutral role, do you imagine a better outcome for all concerned would take place?
The answer is yes, I could, if it was possible to do this, because what has been quite outrageous is, the case against discrimination and the need for mediation has been put brilliantly by Dr. Jocelyn Scott, the former Australian judge, showing there is a really strong case for this sort of thing. And secondly, that if the other groups had joined in and done this, it would have created a much stronger pressure on the all-party group that deals with state pension inequality for women. And there would be a chance. But for some reason, there seems to be very little interest in pursuing this course, actually. They seem to have been tied up by WASPI and its, case without actually looking any further. And because WASPI has been so adamant and wanting nothing to do with mediation or CEDAWinLAW for that matter, it can't fly very easily. I mean, and that is the sad thing, because I think there will be much more opportunity for something to be done. And the real tragedy is, well, these women, 3.5 million, end up getting nothing after years and years of campaigning. A lot of them are still poor. A large number have died, and quite a lot are in really bad health, as you are when you get to your late 60s and so on, and they're not in a fit position to run an easy campaign. They're not in brilliant health. They're not like, say, young people who can hold demonstrations everywhere and make a big fuss. I mean, it's really very, very sad. And I mean, it pains me that after all this effort was put into this, that they are the one group that get nothing. I mean, others are having to queue up and wait for ages, whether it's the post office, infected blood, or those other cases, but they are going to get compensation.
Yes.
This group get nothing. they're just ignored. Well, we don't care about 3.5 million women. They'd be dead soon, is almost what you think the most cynical of MPs are thinking, actually, which is an absolute tragedy.
Yes, well, the longer they leave things, the less people there are, and the strength in numbers. So really, the infighting needs to stop, and they all need to band together to make a much stronger case.
Yeah, yes, because the problem is it's a gift to the government to have infighting, that there are these different groups, because the government well, it's not even had to bother to play off of groups because WASPy bans anybody, presenting an alternative view, more or less. So the government is actually narrowed down to this partial maladministration payment from the Ombudsman. He actually said it was up to Parliament in the end. I mean, a lot of the other Ombudsman reports have got, a decision on it, which says that the following things will be done. And
Yeah.
if I might give an example that goes alongside, because this is going to come up in a judicial review literally at the end of this month. The Ombudsman at the moment is strongly taking on the Charity Commission about the safeguarding of children run by charities after it had two appalling cases and a current one involving, I think, either a charity and a trustee, where a woman has taken up a case about the way she's been treated. And this case, the Ombudsman is prepared to go to the courts and take on the Charity Commission for saying, we rather think that you have a responsibility for safeguarding people in your care, particularly from sexual abuse, and whether it's historic or not. And the contrast, say, to compared with what they've done with the 50s women, where they basically didn't come to a firm thing, only guidelines, and certainly didn't sort of go any further like, they have with the Charity Commission. And in fact, if I might point out further, because we're still waiting a report, the MPs voted for the Committee of Privileges to investigate the Charity Commission, and they've got a report coming out soon. So, I mean, the contrast between those two things that happen to be coincidentally going on simultaneously is really stark in this case.
Yes, they should have really made a recommendation that they got some money. I know it's not what they want or enough, but at least they would have got something in the meantime and could have possibly to make things a little bit better.
Exactly.
Now, do you have any further thoughts on how parliamentary engagement with campaigners representing injustices might be improved?
Mm. Yes, I think I do, because basically campaigners should be able to get Parliament to take up issues that are seen as injustices. And this was an injustice that affected a load of people, in their 50s, who had to wait so long for a pension. And really, the mechanisms are there. I mean, there is a all-party committee that should be able to take things up. But if the all-party committee isn't very robust about it, or decides to fall in with just one group when there are multiple groups who want a solution to this. I mean, I think there is a certain failing among the actual all-party group in not. I mean, it has made attempts to sort of talk to other people, but this also always seems to be closed down by WASP's, determination to stick on its single track approach. And I think that needs to change. And the only people who can change it are the MPs of the committee, or peers they are as well, who can decide to take a more robust attitude when they're faced with campaigners wanting multiple solutions, and actually go to the government and say, look, you've got to find some way out of this, actually. I mean, it's not fair. But at the moment, there doesn't seem to be that push that you would expect. I mean, it was under successive governments. I mean, the Tories were as bad, actually. And also, there's been a lot of hypocrisy, whereby I think Labour MPs have said when the Tories were in power, we back women to get this. And then when they're in power, they forget about it. not all of them. There's some really principled ones. I mean, Ian Byrne in Liverpool, for example, is a really good example of someone who sticks to his guns on this. But a lot of them don't, actually. And I would have thought, actually, in Salford that Rebecca Long Bailey could actually have been a bit stronger, because I know she did feel it was an injustice, but she doesn't seem to have somehow be able to galvanise the committee to really press this forward, because there is the mechanism there, but it has to be used robustly by MPs on it. And I don't think in this case it hasn't. It is in lots of other cases. I mean, take the post office. I mean, MPs have been pretty caustic about the way the government behaved, and so did the and have the infected blood. But even that has been dragged out for years, and a lot of people are still not compensated. We should be.
Yeah, no, that's right. I think the lesson there is not to go into government and stay campaigning, because then you don't have to go off your principles, do you? Or are you going to be a maverick and go against your party if you feel that they're
That's right.
not doing what they should be doing, which I think you should, really. If you've got your beliefs, you go with them, and you don't get watered down by the party line if it's wrong.
Yes, and actually, there have been Labour MPs who actually have. I mean, some of them have lost the whip for periods, who've done things like the cap on child benefit, the two child been MPs who've rebelled against the government. And in the end, the government has done a U-turn, actually, and which shows you it's worth it. And funny enough, also for the farmers, there was one MP, he didn't organise a campaign. Marcus Campbell Savers, who represents Penrith and Solway, actually told the whips that he'd talked to all his farmers, and his farmers were being cheated out by this inheritance tax. And he rebelled, and he's at the moment, I think, not got the whip back. But again, the government have done a U-turn on it in the end. So the government can do U-turns. In fact, this government seems to be rather famous for it. But when a group of MPs really stick to their principles and say, look, we haven't come in to deprive poor children of, getting child benefit. We've come in as a Labour government to do something about it. In the end, the Labour government has listened and done it.
Yeah. Well, better late than never, I suppose.
Yeah.
David, I want to thank you for all the wonderful work you do in supporting 1950s women, and I'm sure that I will join them all in wishing you continually good recovery.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you very much for having me to air my views on these matters. And also, I also think you're doing a great job in Salford in actually bringing this issue to the attention. And actually, it's a strong position because you've got the chair of the committee in this,
Yes,
right, your constituent, in
yes,
your radio area. So I hope she's listening.
yes. I need to drag her in, don't I, and get on the
You
air
do, you
to
should do.
talk. Yeah, yeah. But yes, no, we've been going about 8 years, I think, on the radio with this, and we're not giving in anytime soon.
No, exactly. And that's what's great about you, actually, taking this up.
David, good to see you again, and take care, and hopefully we'll speak to you very soon.
All right. Thank you very much.